This is my 2021 Polestar 2 electric car. I bought this thing just about 9 months ago. It's January 10th of 2025, and I got it on April 1st of 2024. Put 8,200 miles on it in that time, and I am selling it. The reason why I'm selling it is because of this car behind me, my 2019 Tesla Model 3 that has over 208,000 miles on it. We paid half of what this Polestar cost us, 15 grand, 30 grand. And now you can see why I'm trying to sell this car, because there's so many things that Tesla does way better, including range, charging, price, comfort, storage capability, software, self-driving, cameras. Let's go into why I'm trying to sell this Polestar, because it's expensive. As you can see, the Polestar and the Model 3 are very, very similar sized cars. They are both in the compact sedan segment, although that's technically a hatchback, but they're both in the compact sedan segment. However, the Model 3 looks smaller, but it has way more room. To support my argument, let's first look at the front trunk. Pop the front trunk on the Model 3, open this up, and pop the front trunk on the Polestar, which annoyingly has a secondary latch right here that you have to actuate. Looking at these two front trunks, you can clearly see which one is bigger, the Tesla, by a not insignificant amount at all. If you look here, there's plenty of room for this charging cable, or this extension lead. Once I put it in the Polestar's front trunk, it takes up a significant amount of room. The Model 3's front trunk is so much bigger, in fact, that they felt the need to add an emergency safety release on the inside, whereas the Polestar does not. Another big complaint of the Polestar that I have is the center console. First off, my knee is constantly hitting it when I'm driving, and this pillar is a direct blind spot. I can't even see the camera right now, but I'm looking directly at it. There's only one usable cup holder, there's basically no center console storage, and the armrests are harder than my... And as I just mentioned, the visibility in this car is not good. I have very little rearward visibility. This sun visor is right almost in my line of view. This pillar is right in the way. These pillars are quite thick, and also the dash is really high, so it's hard to see things directly in front of you. Comparing this to my Model 3, my Model 3 has much more visibility. I can actually see the camera. The center console has actual storage and cup holders, and my visibility over the dash, because it's so low, is fantastic. Another huge issue with the Polestar is the rear seat room, or lack thereof. I'm around 6 foot tall. The seat is set to my driving position, and I have literally no room. My knees are digging into the back of the seat. My head is digging into the roof. And when I close the door, I do have good lateral room, but the armrest is kind of in a weird spot. And also the middle armrest is cushy, but the side armrest is not. And this hump right here where the wheel is makes it a little harder to get in and out of the rear. Now, compared to the Model 3, the seat is also touching my legs, but my head is not touching the ceiling. I also have much greater visibility because of the lower dash and the roof. And even though the car is more coupe shaped, again, I still have more headroom. It still is a small car, but since this is less sloped or less close to the wheel than it is on the Polestar, it's actually easier to get in and out of, at least with the lift kit that I have installed on my car. And both cars do have a center armrest with 2 cup holders, as well as rear heated seats, air vents, and USB ports, although the Tesla has USB-A instead of USB-C. My only concern with the Tesla is that there's no emergency manual release for the rear seats, unlike the Polestar, which has no electronic door release altogether. And then there's the charging and range. This Polestar, since it still is fairly new as far as mileage goes, still has most of its battery capacity left. I'm estimating about 72 kilowatt hours of capacity. However, it can only charge at a max of 150 kilowatts and uses CCS, which means long handshake times, more expensive charging, and less charging infrastructure. And I did run these cars basically side by side on a range test. It was on a different day, but the days were back to back and the conditions were nearly identical. And they went within 3 miles of each other. The Model 3 has a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack when new. I'm assuming since mine has around 80% battery health left, I'm assuming it's around 60 kilowatt hours of capacity. On my range test, I did pull 62 kilowatt hours out of the pack, but it went 214 miles, 70 miles an hour, and that went 212 miles at 70 miles an hour, but we didn't go all the way to 0 because on that car, you really can't do the highway speeds at 0%. So we just stopped at 3. So add maybe 6 more miles to that. But either way, the range is basically identical. Battery pack charges at 250 kilowatts, and that means I can pretty much go from 0 to full in an hour, whereas it basically took my Polestar 45 minutes to do the last 8%. So this charges way faster, has the same range, but also has less capacity. Not looking good for the Polestar here, is it? Neither of these cars have heat pumps because this was before they put heat pump on the Model 3, and that was before they put heat pump on the Polestar. So they are both resistive heaters, which means in the winter, the range does drop significantly on both. The biggest difference in practicality between the Polestar 2 and the Model 3 is that the Polestar 2 is a hatchback with a power trunk. As you can see, it is a fairly large cargo area. There's some pockets on the side, and there is some underfloor storage as well. The Model 3 also has underfloor storage and a equivalently sized trunk, which I will show you in a minute. But since this opening is larger, you can fit a little bit more in the trunk here as far as height goes, but realistically not that much. Moving over to my Model 3, which has a lovely tow hitch installed, no power trunk, and it is a sedan, which means there is less cargo capacity, but there still is that underfloor space, which is taken up by my tow hitch. But I would say it actually goes a little bit deeper in there, but it is less tall, but it is the same width. So the Polestar might have a little bit more cubic volume in the trunk, not including the underfloor space, but since the Model 3 has a larger frunk and more passenger room, it's not really a valid argument. Plus, a huge bonus with the Model 3 is that because it's a sedan, people can't really break through the back window and access your stuff, unlike the Polestar. I know the Polestar does have that cargo cover, but people can still break through that where you can't with this. Although make sure you get a drop lock for the rear seats, because they can just break that little quarter window and pull the seats down, but if you get a drop lock, which prevents that actuator from moving, then they can't get into your trunk. Although the Polestar does have this cool little ski hatch that goes through the rear armrest. The Model 3 does not have that. Then there's a difference between the keys in these two cars. For one, here's the key, or one of 3 keys to the Polestar. You have lock, unlock, trunk, and panic button. Very simple. Now on the Tesla, you have the app. And the Polestar does have an app, and you can use phone as a key on the Polestar, but it is not reliable at all, and I don't use it. Realistically, the only things you can do on the app is lock, unlock the car, set the climate control to 72 degrees for 30 minutes only, so that's a massive limitation, and see the location. This allows you to do so much more. You can open the frunk, the trunk, honk the horn, flash the lights, lock and unlock the car, set the climate to any temperature you want for any amount of time that you want. You can even bring the car to your location via summon or see the car's current location, and you can even view the live camera feed. You can even request service through the app. So the app is a major thing for the Tesla. Whenever I just walk up, it automatically unlocks. And same with the Polestar, but then you have to carry the key around with you. I did say it does have phone as a key, but it is not reliable, so I don't trust it. So the Tesla is amazing in that aspect. Now, even though it sounds like I'm really dissing on the Polestar, there are a lot of things that I still like about this. For one, the styling. I think the Polestar looks a lot better. This front grille makes it have a lot of character. This kind of looks like a homeless turtle or a fish. I like the frameless mirrors on the Polestar. They're really neat. These are just standard mirrors. I like that the Polestar has a gauge cluster. I like that a lot of people don't know what it is. They think it's a Volvo. Obviously, people know what a Tesla is, and you have that reputation. And I do like that this has Google Maps built in. The Tesla uses Google Maps for its map data, but doesn't actually use Google Maps for its navigation. I do like the gold seat belts in this. I do like the steering wheel thickness. The Model 3 steering wheel is a little bit too thick for my liking, and it's also a little bit small. I like the steering wheel on this a lot better. Another thing I forgot to mention is the Polestar has way more physical buttons on the inside, which is nice. I like that. I also like the appearance of regular door handles on the Polestar versus the Model 3 door handles, which are kind of confusing to passengers. Another thing, Polestar, wireless charging. Tesla doesn't have this, but I don't use it because it just makes your phone excessively hot. Even though the gauge cluster screen on the Polestar is nice, you can't really do much with it. You can either have this view or this view, and that's all the customization you get. Although that's not technically true, you can change these little metrics at the bottom to show a different metric if you'd like. HomeLink on this car actually works. I tried to program HomeLink on my Model 3 and it did not work at all. It actually broke my garage door opener and now it won't work on the one door. So these HomeLink buttons actually work. The brakes on the Polestar, since they are Brembos, are way better than the brakes on the Tesla. But then there's the features on the Tesla that really make me hate the Polestar. For example, Sentry mode, blind spot cameras, autopilot, phone as a key. The air vents on the Model 3 are way better than this. These are really hard to aim and hit you. These you can adjust on the screen, which yes, I know is annoying, but once you adjust them, they work perfectly. These are the best air vents I've used in any car because you can put them exactly where you want. These are by far the worst because they either hit the steering wheel or those center vents, they don't even get anywhere near you because they are on top of the dash rather than coming out of the dash. I don't know why they chose to use those vents. I really just wish they would have copied the Volvo XC40 recharge dash instead of using their own, but whatever. Theater mode, this does have YouTube. This also does, but this has Netflix and all that stuff, and the screen being a landscape screen is much better for that versus this. That's actually a feature that I really like using this. Sometimes I'll just come out to my Tesla and watch a video in here because the screen is so much better. And that brings me to the sound systems on both of these. I'm not an audiophile, and I think both of these sound perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. I do think the Tesla has a little bit more bass than the Polestar, but the Polestar can be a little bit clearer than this, or a little bit more balanced. It really depends on your preference. Another thing I forgot to mention about the Model 3 is that it has easy entry mode. I like the steering wheel pretty low when I drive, but when I get in, I often hit my knees on the steering wheel. So the Model 3 steering wheel starts up, and then when I put it into gear, it lowers back down. The Polestar can't do that because it has a manual steering column, so that's another feature that I really like about the Model 3. Safety technology. This has actual ultrasonic sensors. Yes, I know this has it, but they don't work. The car just uses the cameras. And speaking of which, my backup camera comes on and off because it has the rear harness recall that I need to take it in to do. That's not really the fault of the car. That's just a recall that I need to get done. But anyway, my backup camera sometimes sometimes cuts out, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that the parking sensors on this and the 360 camera, as well as this front camera right here, do make it easier to park than this, because this does not have a front camera and the parking sensors are not all that accurate. They do work and they are a little bit on the conservative side, so it'll say you're way closer to stuff than you actually are, which I guess is a good thing, but I just do like the robustness of physical ultrasonic sensors and radar. And that also applies to adaptive cruise control. This does not phantom brake at all. It'll continuously hold your set speed. It can get way closer to vehicles. This has a minimum following distance of 2 car lengths versus 1 on this, and it often phantom brakes because it's not actually using a radar anymore. Even though this car has a physical radar on it, it's just not being used because it's an older Model 3. That stuff about the driver assist I like about the Polestar, but the rest of it is pretty garbage. I don't like any of the lane assist. It gets in your way too often, and the auto steer is garbage. It tries to take you off exit ramps. This auto steer is pretty much as perfect as it gets in the car world. Heck, even FSD is hands-free. Polestar has a lot of driver assistance things that I do like, but a lot of things that I don't like and I like much better on the Tesla. But kind of a pick your poison. You get a more traditional setup with this versus this, but this has way more technology if you look in the right places. So for half the price in the Tesla, you get way more features, the same range, better charging, more storage. And what do you get with this? The fact that it's different? I guess that's neat, but it's not really worth it to me. Anyway, let's take these cars for a drive, starting with the Polestar. Okay, driving my Polestar. Obviously, keys in my pocket, turned on, and it's on. Both this and the Tesla do not have start-stop buttons. You just get in with the key in your pocket and go. There's no start-stop. I did notice on this car, there is a few things that are common issues on Polestars, like squeaking rear suspension, clicking CV axles under regen, and some other little exterior weird sounds that a lot of Polestars seem to make. But I think it's fairly normal. One thing I do notice compared to my Model 3 is the Model 3 has 2 settings, chill and standard. Standard setting on the Model 3 is way more aggressive pedal feedback than the Polestar, but chill is way more relaxed. This is somewhere in the middle. So we're gonna go into sport mode and give it a little bit of throttle. So the Polestar has a good amount of acceleration. I timed it and it has a 4.2 seconds 0 to 60, or maybe it was 4.3. Acceleration here. 60, 70, 80. So pretty strong acceleration, even up top. Model 3 seems to pull a little bit harder, but that might be a placebo because of the visibility aspect of the Model 3 makes it feel like you're going a little bit faster than this car does. Some angle here over the bump. That's another thing I noticed. The Polestar is significantly stiffer than the Model 3. I know you can adjust it. I just haven't adjusted it. But out of the box, the Polestar is way stiffer. All right, let's rip onto the highway. And I accidentally hit the wiper stalk. Good acceleration, 60. The speed limit is 75 here. There's 80. So again, plenty of pickup and go. It's on the cusp of making you feel sick, but it doesn't actually make you feel sick. This is probably as fast as an EV can be without making you want to throw up. Off throttle regen, more than my Model 3. This seems to have more lift-off regen. Even when the battery's cold, I still have a little bit of regen limit versus the Model 3, which has way more regen limit at the same temperature. Another thing I noticed compared to Tesla is the traction control on the Polestar is very traditional car-esque. It'll cut power and then it won't give you that power back for a few seconds while it tries to calculate it. Unlike Tesla, which Tesla basically has no traction control intervention at all, even though it happens. In both cars, you cannot fully turn off traction control, at least in any normal sense. Polestar has sport mode, Tesla has slip start. They both do similar things, but in kind of different ways. This is oriented for more track use, the slip start's used, and the Tesla has more of a off-road assist. If you get stuck in the snow or the mud, that helps you spin the wheels a little bit more. I feel lower down in the Polestar because the dash is so high. The Tesla has really good visibility, but the Tesla almost feels like you're sitting on top of the car rather than in it, which is not a huge deal to me. It is to some. I actually kind of like that visibility aspect, although I will say the sun visors in both cars, if they're directly down, I literally can't see the road right now. So I am a little bit taller than most people that I would assume these cars are targeted toward, especially since this car is Europe first. So that means that smaller people are going to be driving it, not fat American people, such as yours truly. First thing I like about the Tesla, foot on the brake, steering wheel lowers for me. Makes it easier to get in and out and gives me an ideal driving position, whereas the Polestar is kind of compromised on both. My Model 3 has been lifted by about 2 inches and has some wheel spacers on it, but that doesn't change how the car drives as far as suspension stiffness and stuff, because it's the same stock coilovers and stuff. As you can see, I have lots of regen limit, and this car has been driven about 28 miles today, yet I still have a bunch of regen limit, whereas the Polestar basically didn't have any. Anyway, decent amount of power there until it says 70, and then I'm going to punch it. 3, 2, 1, go. 60, 70, 80. Feels very similar to the Polestar. I really can't comment. It might be a little bit slower 0 to 60, but a little better on the top end. I really don't know. They feel very, very similar. But just the sensitivity of the steering, like I'm barely doing anything, and yet it's turning so much, makes this a lot more fun to just bomb around in versus the Polestar. The only thing I do like about the Polestar's driving experience over this is the noise level. The Polestar is a lot quieter on the inside than this, as you can probably hear. And also this car has quite a few squeaks and rattles, but that's kind of expected because it has way more miles on it. Let's see if I can hit these actual train tracks at some speed to compare the ride comfort. So I think in the Polestar we hit it at about 50, so we'll do the same in the Tesla. Here we go, here comes the train tracks. Not as stiff, it's got, I don't know, as performance capable. It's still, so ignore that clunking in the rear, that's my receiver hitch bouncing around in the trunk, but going around that bend, I can feel the extra power at the rear that the Polestar does not have. But as you can also hear on the highway, this thing is quite a bit louder, but not atrociously bad. It's just worse, but it's also not. It's totally livable. In fact, on the 1,200 mile road trip from North Carolina in this car back to my house, it was actually fairly comfortable. Anyway, merging back up to highway speed. Do a little launch off right here. We'll test the traction control because this is kind of a weird undulation. Cut a little bit of power there once I hit the ridges, but unlike the Polestar, it only cut power for a split second instead of a couple seconds. Long story short, the whole point of this video is just me saying I'm selling my Polestar because I like the Model 3 more than the Polestar. I know that's sad to Tesla haters and Polestar lovers, and when I owned my Polestar before I owned this, I thought it was better than the Tesla, but I hadn't actually fully experienced what a Tesla's like to drive on a daily basis. And it's still a good car, but it's just not for me. It's too cramped on the inside, doesn't have enough range to really be worth it. It doesn't charge that good. It charges okay. It's fine for road trips, but it's not that comfortable, not that much storage space. Again, all the points I've covered several times by this point are the reason why I've chosen to sell Polestar. To give this video a proper conclusion, do I regret owning my Polestar? And the answer is no. For the few months that I actually daily drove this, I actually really enjoyed it until I owned this and then realized how many flaws there are with it. It was cool to see what owning a non-Tesla vehicle is like from the charging experience and the reactions you get from people not knowing what it is, which is actually kind of cool, but honestly, the main reason I'm selling it is because of cost, high insurance, high payment per month. This is paid off, and liability on this car, which is all it has on it because that's all I really need, is incredibly cheap if you can find it in the right place, whereas this is too expensive to really have liability on it. So yeah, mainly it's price, and also it's that this is just so much better equipped than this. Again, same range, but better charging, better software, better storage, better passenger room. The only thing this really holds a place in my heart for is the unique factor that not many people has one of these, and the fact that it's not a Tesla and I don't blend in with every other person in California. But again, properly close up this video, I do not regret buying my Polestar. It was cool to own it for a few months and see what it was like to road trip a non-Tesla electric vehicle. But again, in the long run, it's just a little bit too flawed and a little bit too expensive. That'll be the end of this video. See y'all in the next one.
I love it. Flooring it.